Welcome to A Therapist, a Buddhist, and You. My name is Luke DeBoy, and I'm here once again with my esteemed co-host, Zaw Maw.
What's up, Luke? Good to be here again.
Today is a fun new beginning for us. This is our first time having video recording. So we appreciate the help that we're getting, launching us with the video aspect to our audio. And we'll see how that turns out. But as usual, you can find us in all of our podcast platforms as you're listening right now currently. And I'm sure with the video, we'll be able to use it on YouTube and a bunch of other social media aspects. So that will be fun. So you'll get to see our faces if you so choose, and our setup in lovely downtown Annapolis at the Recovery Collective.
Yeah. Exciting.
It is. It's different. It's different. We get to, usually with the podcast, we get to just have pretty voices and not pretty faces. So we'll see what happens. So today's episode's all, we're going to get right. Some people get right with God. We're going to get right with speech. So let me see if I can explain it for all the listeners, if you don't mind, and tell me if I can communicate what I'm trying to when it comes to right speech.
Speaking of which, you'll be using your words to explain about right speech.
I'm going to try. I did a little reading, so we'll see if I can make sense out of it. So the Noble Eightfold Path is one of the core teachings of Buddhism. I'm right so far? All right, good. It is considered one of the central principles that lead to enlightenment. Okay. It consists of 8 virtues or practices that help individuals overcome suffering. And if you want to learn about suffering, we have a whole episode on suffering, don't we? I believe it's episode 8, so go feel free to check us out on episode 8, why we talk about why suffering is necessary. But back to right speech. If we achieve a state of inner peace and happiness, then that's part of what right speech is all about. Am I articulating this right, Zaw?
Keep going. I'm listening.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. There's a handful of practices or virtues, and I'll list them, and let's see if they're right. The right to view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Today, we're focusing on right speech and how it can lead us toward a better way of health and wellness. How's that for a summary? I don't know if I kept it simple, but I tried.
Yeah, that's a really good overview. And, the 8 factors, Eightfold Path can be categorized into 3 groups, which is according to your list. The first 2, right view and right intention, belongs to the group of wisdom category. And then right action, right speech, and right livelihood belongs to the category of sila, or morality, or moral discipline. And then the last group, which is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, belongs to the category of samadhi, or samadhi, concentration category. So,
what is the word in Burmese or Pali? I don't know. Right. What do they mean by that?
Yeah,
virtue.
So the word is samma, or dhamma, S-A-M-M-A, which is translated as right. But there are also some other translations, which is wise speech, or skillful. So dhamma means, right. But we'll talk, because, that's a repetition for all the Eightfold Path. Dhamma, samadhi would be right concentration. And then dhamma will be right mindfulness. It's very specific. So, but it's good that we're focusing on the right speech. And, we'll love to discuss and talk about that. But that's a really good overview of the Eightfold Path. And
good. I had to do some reading on it and took some notes. So, words have powerful meaning, and I say words have power. They can certainly affect our well-being. What do you think on that for example, right speech or words have the power to affect our overall well-being.
Yeah, I also wanted to circle it from the beginning about the Eightfold Path. In our tradition, it comes in order. So for me to be able to get to a calm state of mind, I had to follow the moral discipline. So for me to be able to calm my mind, to be able to concentrate, I should abstain from killing. I should abstain from lying, stealing, sexual misconduct, all these things. So, it creates a framework for the concentration and the right view and the right intention to occur. But in terms of words, right speech, Dhamma Vasa, VACA is a translation for speech. So words do have powerful meaning, but also interestingly too, that if there is right speech, it also implies that there is wrong speech, And the Noble Eightfold Path comes from the Four Noble Truths, because the Fourth Noble Truth is the cause for the cessation of suffering, and then it unfolds into the Eightfold Path. And then for layman Buddhists, there are 5 precepts that you have to follow. And one of them is to abstain from any kind of false speech, muda wada. So interestingly, that it's a pretty low bar for a layman Buddhist to abstain from lying, because if there is right speech, the wrong speech includes, I think, 4 categories, which is the first is to abstain from any kind of lying, which is less of like deception, but to misrepresent truth is to lie. And then the next category has to do with like...
I've always had a friend tell me, if you don't want to be a liar, tell the truth.
Yeah.
It's a layman way of looking at it.
Yeah. And then a second group is coming up with like some decisive to divide the group, like saying one thing to one person to have a bad reputation for the other person. So it has more to do with the community, to divide the community, to create stories that separate the community. That also belongs to the false speech. And then the next one has to do with the harsh speech, which is violent, really loud or swearing, like really harsh speech is also considered false speech. And then the last one, which is interesting, which I want to talk about relating to like depression and anxiety too, is the idle chatter, that, the speech that comes out of like subconscious, like without much effect or without much of a thinking, which I relate that with some kind of a negative self-talk too, because mental thoughts can be considered speech too, So that would be the first overview, first initial thoughts about right speech. I don't know if that's too broad of a scope.
Well, you gave us the spray of everything categorically with right speech and where to start. So if you were to explain the meaning of right speech, the intention is for enlightenment, the right speech. My mind went to, and you highlighted this, truthful speech. What's the Buddhist perspective on telling the truth? Hey listeners, we've got something extraordinary to share, a chance to reshape your journey no matter where you are. You're familiar with Zaw Maw's insights on our podcast, but there's more. Through the Recovery Collective, he offers life, mindfulness, recovery coaching, and meditation groups guiding you toward a fulfilled and mindful existence, no matter your location. Zaw's journey from a Burmese Buddhist novice to a skilled practitioner equips him with timeless wisdom and contemporary strategies. Whether you're navigating life's shifts, seeking clarity, or pursuing self-awareness, Zaw's coaching serves as a compass guiding you toward success. The best part? Zaw's approach centers on your growth and empowerment. He equips you with tools to tap into your inner strengths for continuous evolution no matter where you are. Ready to take that next step in your personal growth journey? Connect with Zaw Maw and the Recovery Collective at 240-813-8135 from anywhere in the world. Investigating in your journey reaps immeasurable rewards. Let Zaw Maw guide you toward resilience, clarity, and empowerment no matter where life finds you. Now, let's transition back into our conversation. Stay tuned, stay curious, and keep your journey growing.
Yeah, and then, the first noble truth is the noble truth of suffering. So everybody's suffering already, and if I add lie to it, people are even going to suffer more. But the emphasis is less on the deception, but more on the misrepresentation of the truth, because the core belief is that truth can set you free. So if I'm covering that up, then I'm adding more to the suffering to myself and to other people. I wanted to say too that I'm a layman Buddhist, and I'm not only a layman Buddhist, but just a layman, a human being in general. So I don't want to approach right speech from a morality point of view, because I'm not a Buddhist monk who is like purified in my speech. I have, committed, false speech a lot in my life, and it's part of my practice to be mindful of that. But in terms of like truthfulness, there's a lot of emphasis on truthfulness. If we look at some, discourses, is that the power of truthfulness, because there are some lines in these discourses where Buddha would say something, and then there's an ending that says, by the utterance of this truth, may all beings be happy, or may all beings be truthful, or may all beings be, free from anger or danger. So like, even if what you're saying is not the best thing, but if you stay true to the fact that you said that, the power is amazing, So it can be as simple as, just a relevant example of, for example, serenity prayer is quite famous. So if you say the serenity prayer 10 times, and then after saying that, you say to yourself that it is the truth that I said the serenity prayer 10 times. By the utterance of that truth, may I be happy, then the power can be very powerful. So like, to answer your question of right speech is not to add any more, but like to say things as it is what I'm trying to say in terms of right speech.
I sum up that as avoid deception and be honest with your words. We previously talked about two things. We talked about in previous episodes, karma. And if you give truth and you put out truth, then it's a lot more freeing than whether it's being deception or in my active addiction. I never said I was a liar, but I certainly had lies of omission. I would leave things out. And that was a lot of work to omit the truth, and it was deceptive to myself and the people in my world. And I would feel that internally when I had deception, or the opposite of right truth would be what, wrong truth? I don't know how the Buddhist perspective on that, but back to the karma, that previous episode of what you put out is really important energetically, physiologically. You're relating it to the anxiety and depression. And we often talk about there's often a rhyme or reason for why things are the way they are. We can look at that spiritually. We can look at that in a Buddhist perspective. And I often help people through therapy of, okay, what are the patterns and reasons for your anxiety that you do have control over? And that can be right speech or with honesty.
Yeah, it all comes back to harmfulness and harmlessness. But at the same time, there is also that aspect of unskillfulness or ignorance that sometimes, as a human being, we have a really limited, finite mind. So sometimes we say things because we don't know. But there's a big difference between saying things from my ignorance to really knowing what's true and then misrepresent it to gain reward or to harm somebody. That is... that is the morality part of it. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't know how to relate these two, but like sometimes truth is revealed without any words. So like, it's interesting that we're doing video and also the audio, is that a big part of communication, this is what I've learned from my interpretation profession, is that the most important skill in communication is listening. So if I'm really, really listening, I'm like being real and truthful. But when I don't listen, that's when I start creating lies and untrue things. So it has a lot to do with, like when we're talking, or when you can even like see somebody, when you listen, a lot is being revealed with that voice, the tone, the volume, the pace, everything is already truthful. So it takes pressure off of me if I think about it that way, that, things are being communicated anyway. So I'm just wasting energy by covering the truth.
Yeah, right speech is much more authentic and real than the opposite. I took a note on breaking down right speech in 4 categories. One is to have truthful speech, which we just talked about. Another one is kind speech, which to me means using gentle and supportive words. So we can be truthful, but there's benefit to be kind with our words. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, but I also want to avoid from people pleasing, right? Like you want to say all kind things, flowery stuff, but not to the point of like, I just want to sound good,
Yeah, I think of Don Miguel Ruiz in the 4 Agreements, and he talks about to be impeccable with your word. And impeccability, one synonym for impeccable is purity. And you mentioned that. It's to have good intention, not to hurt, but to be honest, be truthful, and be kind. It doesn't mean someone else will take it that way, even though I'm being truthful and kind, but it's not to hurt. As a previous clinical director, I did that all the time. If I spoke with truth and honesty and kindness, I got to set a community and a culture and healthy boundaries with an addiction treatment community and a group. And it usually had a wonderful effect on the culture of the facility, because I was true, I was authentic, I was kind. Now, not every client took it that way, but I felt authentic and true to myself. And I know my intention wasn't to hurt, but only help, and to not people please, but often to set healthy boundaries and create a good culture and communication and relationships, and set up good conditions for recovery, which I think right speech is right in line with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to the mindfulness practice. If I am staying grounded in the present moment, I don't need to overthink. So like the natural kindness, kind speech also means I don't have to try really hard to be coming up with kind speech, which is a gauging point for people pleasing, right? So if I'm like trying really hard to be kind, then I'm kind of like taking it too much. Because if we go back to the first noble truth, life already, there is suffering. So if I stay true to it and see it, kindness comes out naturally because you see suffering.
In some ways, this seems so simple, but why is this so important to have kind speech, that the Buddha made this part of the Eightfold Path? Why is this so important to discuss for health and wellness, for people's recovery, for people's mindset, to help with depression, anxiety, to help with getting rid of anxiety? Why is this such a crucial thing, even though it seems so simple?
Yeah, first thought that comes to mind is that we have an innate nature for a sense of belonging. We are always in a community or even a relationship with ourselves. So when I am practicing right speech, truthfulness, there's more harmony in the community, especially if I have committed lies and people are used to it, then I lose the trust. So there is already a well-being, the harmony between. There's also a self-deception too, right? Like if I have used wrong speech to myself over and over again, self-deceiving, then I'm like further away from harmony within myself. So because again, the whole purpose of the Eightfold Path and Buddhism is the cessation of suffering. So there's more suffering if there is more disharmony, So right speech has to do with that, creating that harmonious and trustworthy kind of relationship with the community and also with yourself too.
You, as a Buddhist-inspired life coach and meditation coach, and myself as a therapist, that we work with a lot of addicts in our practice, and a lot of people that abuse substances and are ridding of that addiction. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing and seeing is working with these individuals that have one of their primary goals is to no longer use substances and no longer relapse. And one of the most powerful things that I see working with some of the clients that we work both together with, is this level of true, authentic honesty when they first started to see us, and through the recovery process, they get this whole nother level of honesty, or the kind of things that we're talking about now, this level of right speech that is much different and authentic and honest than it was when they first started working with us weeks ago or months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, the question that I asked you, like, why is this so important? Me in my very early recovery, I thought I was honest. I was full of shit. And I didn't realize how full of shit I was. And I really thought I was being rigorously honest. And the longer that I got to work a recovery program and surround myself with people that did provide trust and kindness and help and authenticity, I was able to get to this different level of true honesty, and I think or right speech. And it began as a willingness. Why was the Buddha really talking about right speech? Because previous episode we talked, why do people go to therapy? So many people go to therapy and lie their asses off because of denial, because of fear, because of discomfort. And right speech is saying to me, from what I'm hearing you, some of my takeaway is, there's an easier way, and it's kindness and compassion to ourselves, and it's not omitting when I have discomfort. It's not omitting when I messed up, and it's kind of a ego and pride, unhealthy pride shedder.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's my thought exactly about ego. Ego is an illusion, or the illusion of self in Buddhism, but it has to do with not like what other people think of me, but like what I think they should think of me. It's like a double layer, and then trying to maintain that, and coming up with deception for that. But also there are a couple of things that comes to mind as you were talking, is about in Buddhism there's previous lives and future lives and stuff like that. And according to those, Buddha has violated all precepts in his previous lives and in his life, but there's only one precept.
Dog.
There's only one precept that he never broke.
Huh? Oh, do tell. Now I'm all ears.
Yeah. So there's only one precept that he never broke. It's that false speech. That's the only precept that he always stayed true to. Since you asked that question of why right
drank
speech,
like you and me, like you're saying.
That's a story.
The Buddha drank. All right.
But also another thing is that when he encountered a new student, his prerequisite, or his gauging to qualify whether that person is ready to hear the teaching, is that person's truthfulness.
That is so relatable as me as a therapist, whether it's the couples work that I've done or individual work. And it often takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions before a client is ready or willing to see this level of truth or awareness in themselves. There might be things I say in that first or second session that doesn't hit or connect until that third, fourth, or fifth session, where they have this new level of what they're saying is different. What they're hearing is much more accepting, and I guess it connects to right speech.
Yeah, it can be very empowering, when you partner with truth, not like partner with what you think is right.
Say that again.
So like,
that was good.
If I am having an argument with you, and if I want to keep thinking about myself that I'm right, and then it's like very aggravating. But if I think about like what is actually truthful here, and if I partner with that, it's not about you, it's not about me anymore, but it's about what's true. It can be very empowering, The
great reality. Not what I want, but actually is. Yeah, that's powerful and helpful. Good. Well, anything else that jumps out at you when it comes to the importance of this Eightfold Path and specifically right speech?
Yeah, so the very beginning, what we talked about is, I don't think we talk about this that much, or it's not discussed that much, especially when you sit in silent meditation. You're not talking, right? And that's also what is encouraged, that when you sit in silence in meditation, you're doing a good job, because if there are 5 precepts, you are maintaining those precepts at the very bare minimum, because you're not talking, so you're not lying necessarily, and you're not, doing any kind of sexual misconduct unless you're lost in fantasy of sexual thought. That might be a different story. At least you're not killing, and you're not stealing. So these are all when you're sitting.
Low bar is all.
So these are all good. But at the same time, the interesting thing is that you can have thoughts that are not true, or thoughts that are unkind to yourself. Like, what is wrong with me? I should be in a better place in my life right now. Like, if there are those thoughts, then in a way you're violating the right speech as well. Like that negative self-talk, that if we're so habitual about talking negative things to ourselves, even if you're not talking, even if you're sitting in silence, that precept, that path, that factor of Eightfold Path needs to be reevaluated. So I wanted to bring that up too, because it sounds a little subtle, but it can have very profound effect on you. First, to watch it, but also to kind of rewire it in a way, to be truthful in your own thoughts, can have really positive impact. And when somebody's like living truthfully, not just in words, but like internally, like that person is just very harmonious. You love being around that person. It's really inspiring when you see somebody who's very truthful. Like all the guards are down, and you just want to you can feel it, So it's really inspiring, because you can see somebody who has positive self-talk, not like egocentric way, but just that they are truthful to their own thoughts, and that's it. And the opposite is also true. When you see a negative self-talk person, you can pick up the energy.
I use the term great reality, and I've asked people with that dark, deep, negative internal critic, and I ask them, what is the great reality behind that statement? And I ask them to search in a truthful way, are you a bad person? Are you are you a piece of shit? Whatever that internal critic is telling them, I kind of explore, what is the reality behind that? Is that truly real? And that gives them to a new level of, hopefully, honesty and rewiring the brain and allowing the second, third thought and emotion to come in to counteract that untruthful, mean critic that we often train ourselves to thinking, I deserve this. Well, what's the reality behind that? And allowing, I call it the wise man or the wise woman, allowing that wise part of self, the enlightened part of self, like you said, through mindfulness and meditation, hearing those voices and maybe allowing that wise man and that wise woman to counteract the reality behind that negative critic.
Yeah.
A few other things that, some practical tips to incorporate right speech into our daily life. One is practice mindfulness. Another one is speak truthfully. Are there any other practical tips that you recommend incorporating to do right speech?
Yeah, I haven't thought about this, but this thought just comes to mind right in this moment, which I don't think is a stretch. But the best way to practice right speech, which probably sounds counterintuitive or not related at all, but to practice listening, to really intentionally listening when you are communicating with somebody. Because that's been my experience, that the more I used to isolate myself a lot, when I was deep in my troubles. But I have a sense of community now in recovery, and I think about how did I even become this? And it comes from interacting with other people. So when you are truthfully listening to what somebody else is saying, because sometimes, everybody's probably guilty of that. When you're having a conversation, instead of really listening what the other person's saying, you think about what you're going to say.
I'm doing it right now. Yeah.
But the beauty and the truthful part of that is that if you're really listening, and when the other person's done talking, what you're supposed to say comes naturally. You don't even have to think. So in a way, right speech, to practice right speech, listening, really, really listening when somebody's talking, because there are different ways to listen, right? Are you listening to what the other person is saying, or are you listening for the things that you agree with? Try to overlap,
What a great example of mindfulness and being present to do that. First thing that came to my mind that I wanted to say back instead of listen to you is I was given 2 ears and one mouth. If I stand to listen twice as long as I speak, I might avoid idle speech. I might avoid negative critic. I might allow my authentic true self to be present and be comfortable with it if I listen. But I'm on a podcast, so I'll be doing some talking. So that's good. Avoiding harmful speech we talked about can help with right speech, that negative internal voice. And you said listen attentively, being able to listen and be present, not to respond and react, but to be with that person, I think organically, naturally, in a human being type way allows us to speak with kindness, compassion, and love, and not fear and reaction and negativity.
Yeah. And one additional advice or one additional tip would also be to practice self-compassion as well, because we don't know it when we're lying, but we are actually creating more harm to ourselves the more we lie, because we're isolating in a way from the truth. So some self-compassion practices are as simple as, may I be happy. So it's not like affirmative thing, like I am happy, which might not be true, which might be a false speech that because you're not happy right now, but may I be happy, like sets an intention, your aspiration that you put it out there. And that's truer than saying that I am happy right now, which is not true. But if I say, may I be happy, you send out an intention to the universe. That
sounds like karma to me. And I was going to ask you, but I should have done 2 ears and less of my one mouth. But that is an example of a potential mindfulness technique that people can do to practice or enhance potential right speech. Is there any other practical mindfulness skills that you would recommend for people to potentially set up the conditions for right speech? And whether it's, I think you gave a wonderful one, but anything else for mindfulness? Yeah, in terms of mindfulness and meditation to consider.
Yeah, just meditate,
There you go. Not force it.
Yeah, because it can start having
That's
positive
so Buddhist
effect.
of you. So Buddhist.
Find a place to sit on a regular basis and watch what happens to your mind. So, but yeah, this is fun. I hope this was helpful. Yeah.
This was really good. We enjoyed this, and thank you all for listening on the platforms that you are. Once again, this will be whenever we release this. I'm not sure when. We've got a few in the bank in terms of being released on Monday. But this will be the first time that people can see us on different social media platforms, including our Facebook page at The Recovery Collective. And you can find us on LinkedIn, our names, Zaw Maw and Luke DeBoy, as well as we'll be on YouTube for the first time. We'll have our own channel on YouTube. Maybe this is the time that it goes back and forth on the video. I'm not sure, but as well as TikTok and all the other social media platforms. So thank you for listening, and please subscribe, comment, review, follow, like. If you think others would benefit, please share it with other people. And collectively, we can find solutions to all things health and wellness. My name is Luke DeBoy.
And this is Zaw. Thank you all.
See you next time.
See ya.